Okay, today we're going to look at this quadratic here, and we're going to learn how to find the axis of symmetry using x equals negative b over 2a. We're going to find the vertex by plugging in the value that you find for the axis of symmetry, and we're going to find the x-intercepts by using the quadratic equation, and then we're going to find the y-intercept by letting x equals 0 and figure out y to find the y-intercept. All right, let's start off. Let's look at our original equation here. First of all, you have to realize, looking at this equation, the negative 2 will be our A, the negative 8 will be our B, and the negative 6 will be our C for any of the equations that we need to use. All right. So let's start off by finding the axis symmetry. The axis symmetry, you have to use the equation x equals negative b over 2a. So we'll be using this equation here, and again, the b is the negative 8, the a is the negative 2. Since we have a negative b, we're going to have a negative negative 8 divided by 2 times negative 2. So replacing the b with negative 8 and the a with negative 2, we get this. Let's calculate what this value is. Negative negative 8 becomes positive 8. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. We see here x equals negative 2. So that is our axis of symmetry. Notice I write my answer as x equals negative 2. We want to state the axis of symmetry as a line, not just a number. So x equals negative 2 is the proper way to write it. If we scroll down here to our graph, that means that this line right here, this vertical line that goes through negative 2 on the x-axis, will split the quadratic perfectly in half. That's why they call it the axis of symmetry. All right, now that we have the axis of symmetry, let's move on to finding our vertex. To find our vertex, we're going to take this value here, x equals negative 2, and we're going to plug it in for x here, and then see what value comes out for y. Then the pairing of the x and the y will be our vertex. So again, there's my equation. I'm going to be plugging negative 2 in here and negative 2 there. So here you see I took the x out, put negative 2 here and negative 2 there. I want to start off by figuring out what this is. Exponents first. So negative 2 squared is 4. I do the exponent before the multiplying or the subtracting. I could do the multiplying here, it gives me negative 8. Do the multiplying here, it gives me positive 16, and that's a negative 6. So when I plug in negative 2 for my axis of symmetry in for x, I end up with y equaling 2. So my vertex is negative 2 comma 2. Again, the negative 2 is from here, and then when I plug it into this equation, y is positive 2, so the vertex is negative 2 comma 2. Now let's go on to find my x-intercept. To find the x-intercept, you will have to have the quadratic equation memorized. Here it is. Notice in the quadratic equation there are a, b's, and c's. And again, back at our original equation, this is a, that's b, and that's c. Again, for different problems, there'll be different numbers, but a will always be next to x squared, b will be next to x, and c will be this number by itself. Make sure that you keep the sign with it. And then you'll just plug them in here, b here, a here, c here, and a here. All right, notice we had negative b, but b was negative. So we have a negative negative b. That's important. People mess that up a lot. Plus or minus negative b squared in parentheses minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2a. Now let's simplify underneath the root first. And again, you could simplify underneath the root using your calculator. It's important to use the parentheses wherever you see parentheses. I have them to get this correctly. Let's go to our graphing calculator and check this out. All right, we're going to use our graphing calculator here. And again, it's important to use parentheses. So I'm going to go negative, uh, excuse me, sorry, I'm going to do b squared. So that's going to be negative 8. And notice I'm using parentheses. The square button is right here. Minus 4, and again, I'm using parentheses, times a, which was negative 2, times c, which was negative 6. And you'll want to punch it in just like that to make sure that you get the right answer. Notice our answer is 16. So now we could go back and use... All right, so let's look at the simplifying here. I had negative 8, which is now 8, plus or minus the square root, and all this I just figured out my graphing calculator, and I used parentheses, and that gave me a 16 over negative 4. The square root of 16 equals 4, so instead of square root of 16 here I have 4. And here's the tricky part. There is a plus and minus here now, plus or minus, so we actually have to go through twice. We have to go 8 plus 4, which is 12 over negative 4. We have to do 8 minus 4, which is 4 over negative 4. So we have two scenarios here. We have 12 over negative 4. That's for the 8 plus 4 over negative 4. We have 4 over negative 4. That's for the 8 minus 4 over negative 4. And we see that x equals negative 3 or x equals negative 1, which makes sense because we will have two x-intercepts down here. We want to make sure that we write our x-intercepts as points, so let's do that. So there are our x-intercepts, negative 3, comma 0, and negative 1, comma 0. Now for our y-intercepts. For our y-intercepts, we're just going to let x equal 0, because for every y-intercept on this line, x equals 0. So let's take our original equation. We're going to plug in 0 here and 0 here to see what y equals when x equals 0. So we're plugging in 0 for x and seeing what y is. And this is easy. These zeros cancel out here and here, so y equals negative 6, thus making our y-intercept 0, comma negative 6. All right, let's see what we have on our graph here. All right, we have a vertex that we found was negative 2, comma 2. So that means that the vertex will be right here, negative 2, comma 2. It opens down, so it's going to open down. We're going to have a x-intercept at negative 1, comma 0, and negative 3, comma 0, and a y-intercept at 0, comma negative 6.